Hey everyone, Moreland here, bringing you what I believe to currently be the best setup for workshops in Black Desert Online. As always, feel free to check the description for a table of contents and shortcuts that will allow you to skip around the video. So when I say this is the best workshop setup, that could mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So let's talk a little bit about how these workshops are chosen and what I mean by best, because that term is going to change a lot based on your specific playstyle. So to give you guys a rough idea of what my workshop setup currently does, I make about 20 million silver a day off of something like 8 different workshops, and I spend 2 to 3 hours a day gathering and processing. So 2 to 3 hours a day, netting 20 million silver, somewhere between 7 to 10 million silver an hour for my efforts. Now that's, like I said, with about 8 workshops. If you don't want to gather and process for 2 or 3 hours a day, you could only do 1 or 2 workshops, and then do like 20 or 30 minutes. So it's definitely scalable. You don't have to do all of these, but I am going to take you guys through and show you which ones I like. The criteria that I set forth for selecting these, there's a few key points here. So the first one is the materials need to be easy to get. For the most part, the most difficult materials to get here is going to be hides, which I'll show you how to gather very, very easily. Everything else you should be able to get either from your workers or from the marketplace. The second point is that each of these items needs to sell pretty quickly. Some of the items will actually sell instantly, like the second they hit the market, someone will be watching it and they'll go and try to snipe it within the first few minutes or even first few seconds. Other items will take a little bit longer, but overall everything in this video will sell pretty quick. You have a limited amount of space in your marketplace, so if there's a workshop that theoretically makes a lot of money but it takes longer for the items to sell, those are going to be left off this list. We're just going to stick with stuff that can sell quickly and reliably. Third point, the items need to be very valuable and very efficient as far as spending our energy goes. So what I mean by that is, we could take a look at, for example, the Noble Wagon. This probably can make you more money per day than any other crafted item in the game, but it takes an insane amount of energy to make these, especially the sturdy pine plywood. So from an efficiency standpoint, the Noble Wagon is actually worse than all the other items that I'm going to show you in the video. So it's not enough just for an item to be very profitable, it also needs to be very efficient. Because why would we waste all of our energy making just Noble Wagons when we could make 4 or 5 other things that are going to total us profit of much more than what this one item would make? So very profitable and very efficient is the next point. And finally, the last point, or the last criterion for all the items that we're making in this video, is that there needs to be a lasting demand. So something that is going to be obsolete soon, or something that could not sustain many people making it, like if a market is going to crash because too many people see this video, then those items also don't qualify, so we're cutting all those off the list as well. So that's my criteria for putting all this together. Now, with that being said, there's a few notes to go over before we get into the list. So when it comes to hides, you may be able to buy them off the marketplace. If you do, of course, it'll cut into your profits. But if you can find them, then go ahead and buy them if you would like to save yourself the gathering. I personally don't mind the gathering because I make more money this way, and I get the new crystal shards, the hard and sharp crystal shards that you need for Valencia. But the best spots for Fancy Fur and Tough Hide is going to be right here south of Kusha. So we're in the Media territory. This is Kusha town. Just go south and there's this little dirt road right here that you can't really see too well on the map. That's going to have clusters of cheetah dragons all along it. Kill those and process the cheetah hide into Fancy Fur, and then process the Fancy Fur again into fine Fancy Fur. And then just past the cheetahs, there's going to be a very dense spawn of stonehead bison, kind of out in the rocks here. This is going to be the fastest place to farm Tough Hide. Again, you just process the hide twice to get the fine version. If you can't quite handle these mobs yet, because these are level 50 mobs, so be careful fighting them in a gathering costume. You might need to bring some heal potions. If you can't quite fight those yet, then you can get Tough Hide alternatively over here by the Forest of Seclusion node. There's a crossroads right here with lots of low-level pigs that you can kill. Not quite as good as the rhinos, but if you're a lower level, this is a good source of the Tough Hide as well. For Thin Hide, you just need to kill weasels, which are all over the place, but a good spot in particular to get lots and lots of weasel hide is right here outside of Olvia, kind of to the south. So you'll probably remember this area from when you first started the game and went through the tutorial. It's got a really dense population of weasels right here. You can get Thin Hide very quickly. For Soft Hide, we of course are going to go to Goat Mountain. So here's Lynch Ranch, here's Heidel, here's Velia. In between all of that's up on the peak here, kind of like right about there. So a little bit to the left as far as the mountain goes. There's going to be a huge population of goats right here. The goats are all along the mountain, but right around this area right here is where they're the most dense. You can kill those and get a ton of soft hide very, very quickly. And then finally, for hard hide, down past Lynch Farm Ruins over to the Northwestern Gateway node, there are a whole bunch of lizards and salamanders here. You kill those and you can process that into hard hide and then process it again into fine hard hide. Now when it comes to making fine hard hide, same thing with making ingots or making plywood, all the third tier materials, there are certain knowledges that you need. I'll go ahead and post links in the description to the quests that unlock those knowledges in case you haven't gotten them yet. I think your gathering needs to be Apprentice 4, if I remember right, to unlock the quests. So at that point you'll be able to process materials into the third tier material. There's one more piece of knowledge that you might need for a few of these called Skilled Heating. I'll put a link to that in the description as well. That one is a little bit tougher. In order to unlock Skilled Heating, the quest has a prerequisite of gathering Skilled 10 and processing Professional 5. So that one's going to be a little bit more advanced, and you're going to need Skilled Heating in order to make the pure iron crystals or the pure zinc crystals that a few of these items will make. If you don't quite have that level of professions yet, don't worry. There are other items in the video that are not going to require Skilled Heating, so you can still make a good amount of money just by using the workshops that don't require Skilled Heating and using what you can make. One last thing before we get started, I'm going to put some numbers in the top left to give you guys an idea of how valuable each of these workshops will be. The profit that I'm putting there is going to include the marketplace tax and the cost of the materials, so everything's already calculated. That should be a pretty good estimate of what you can make if you're using roughly a level 20 skilled worker to manufacture your goods. So obviously if you use a professional or an artisan worker, you can do even better than that. I just chose these benchmarks to be, pretty moderate, pretty reachable for the average player. And same thing with the energy efficiency. That's based on pretty like skilled level gathering or processing, not too high. Once you get your skills into the professional and artisan levels, you will start making a lot more silver per point of energy doing these methods. So we're going to start. Most of these are going to be based out of Altanova, and you'll see why. There's some pretty efficient chains that are built in Altanova that I'm going to show you guys, starting with this one right here. The lodging that you're going to use for your Altanova workers is going to chain into two workshops that are very useful. The first one is going to be this costume mill right here, and I think that the best costume as far as the price of the materials versus the profit that you make is the alchemist costume. I've had the best luck with this one. Powder of Darkness is very cheap, so even if this costume doesn't sell for quite as much as the other ones, you generally make more profit from this one. However, I've also had really good experience with the Gatherer's and the trainer's costumes. So take a look at those as well. You can get the materials for both of these, the Trace of Forest and the Trace of Battle. You can get both of these from Burnianto Farm, so you only need one node. And then you can just, switch back and forth from one to the other as your workers catch up with getting you the materials. Maybe make some of those alchemist costumes in between. I skipped the rest of the costumes. As far as the cook and the craftsman costume go, I have other uses for my powder of flame and my powder of earth. Same thing with this one, actually. I have other uses for my powder of crevice. So I don't make any of those. And obviously the farmer's clothes, we want to use our Trace of Forest for the gatherer outfit instead. So I skipped that one as well. You can make the fishing costume. This one has been profitable in the past. It all just kind of depends on, the flavor of the month with fishing. If it makes a comeback in Valencia, or if a new strategy comes out, or whatever, something makes the fishers want to go buy their costumes again. But this one tends to fluctuate a lot, and there tends to be a lot of people making it. So I avoid this one as well and stick mainly with alchemist, gatherer, and trainer costumes. Also building off Altanova Lodging, right here, there is a level 4 handcraft workshop where you can make the Yuria Amulet. This is the Yuria weapon for the Sorceress class, so it's a very popular item, and the materials are pretty easy to come by as long as you can make the pure zinc crystals with skilled heating. If you don't have skilled heating, you should probably skip out on making Yurias. I think buying the crystals will cut too deeply into your profits, but you can take a look and see if it's still worth it, depending on your server. As far as the Trace of Ascension goes, I have not had any trouble supplying 3 different Yuria workshops with Trace of Ascension just by buying it off the market, so the supply seems pretty steady, but you can also get Trace of Ascension from the Ancient Stone Chamber node as well, if you feel like you need a little bit more. Not quite as efficient with your contribution, but there is also a workshop right here, a level 4 carpentry workshop that makes Yuria longbows. These sell just as well, if not better, than the Sorceress Yuria, and they're actually a little bit cheaper to make. They take timber instead of steel. So take a look at the level 4 carpentry workshop. That's another good one. And then finally, we have a level 4 weapon workshop up here in the corner. Builds out of a little bit of lodging, not quite as good as the other one, but again, definitely worth taking in my opinion. And here we have a few different options. We can do the Yuria longsword, we can do the Yuria blade, or we can do the Yuria short sword. I've had the best luck with the Yuria short sword, and it also happens to take the least amount of steel, so that's pretty nice. But just take a look at the 3 of these on your server and see which one tends to sell for the most. Don't make the Yuria axe. For whatever reason, the price of the Yuria axe isn't as high as the other Yurias on the auction house. I guess maybe Dom wanted to make things a little bit easier on Zerkers. Who knows? Maybe they forgot a decimal place. But yeah, definitely don't make the axe. Stick to the other weapons. And you'll make really good money from those 3 Yuria workshops, especially the longbow and the amulets. If you have to choose, obviously start with the amulets because they build off the lodging. And then I would say longbow next, and then the weapon workshop last. As far as the profit from these, the numbers are based on the Yuria selling for about 300k, but honestly, it's still really good to make and sell, even if it drops down to like 250k. You should expect competition with Yurias. They won't sell as quickly as the other items in this video, so you might have to relist them a bit, but overall the demand is very good. And even if the price drops down below 300k, you shouldn't sweat it too much. If the price drops way down, like more around the 200k range, then it's time to reevaluate, maybe close up and look at something else. But the Yuria doesn't have to sell for max price for it to be profitable. It can drop down quite a bit actually and still be worth making. So similarly, at the level 3 versions of these workshops, there's some offhands we can make that are also worth taking a look at. Building into the wagon workshop, which we'll talk about in a little bit, there's actually a level 3 handcraft workshop right here. I don't have it because I'm making the other offhand instead, but there's a really good offhand you could make right here if you just want something that builds right into the wagons, and that would be the Jubre Talisman. So this is the AP offhand for the Sorceress class. Very popular item and constantly sold out, so you don't even have to worry about competition for this one. You don't have to worry about relisting it. This is so high in demand that people will put a notice up for it and they'll buy it as soon as they can see it on the marketplace. The materials for this, the powder of flame is probably the most expensive components depending on the prices for your server. I have a few different powder of flame nodes going to keep myself supplied. There's one here at Coastal Cave, 2 at Imp Cave, and then another one at Forest Seclusion. All of those copper nodes give powder of flame, so I just kind of take those on my way down to Ancient Stone Chamber, which I mentioned earlier. This is where you get Trace of Ascension as well as Trace of Earth. So if you want the powder of flame yourself, you don't want to have to rely on the market. Those are some really good spots. You can also get it from Heidel Quarry. You can get it from Media Shore. There might be some other spots too. Generally speaking, copper nodes will yield powder of flame. Use a human worker with high luck if you want to get more. The other offhand that we should talk about is over at the Weapon Workshop. And again, remember, you only need a level 3 Weapon Workshop or Handcraft Workshop to make these offhands. So they're cheaper contribution-wise, and you can often find them in other places. I have a Steel Dagger Workshop going in Heidel, which is why I don't make them in Altanova. But yeah, the Steel Dagger, as you can see, takes more or less the same materials as the Jubre Talisman. Different type of material, but overall the same cost. Again, Powder of Flame is going to be your biggest bottleneck here. So do get those Powder of Flame nodes if you're going to be making a lot of these. This is the AP offhand for the Wizard and the Ranger class. So just like the Jubre Talismans, it sells out instantly. You can mass produce these. I even think it's a pretty decent idea to use a Goblin instead of a human for these, even if you won't get the lucky versions. Just in terms of sheer volume alone, you can make a lot of money off these if you just spam them out as quickly as possible. But, you know, it all just depends on how much Powder of Flame you can get. If you're a little bit short on Powder of Flame, then stick to the human. That way you get more out of your limited resources. Next up, perhaps the best workshop overall in terms of both profit and efficiency combined is the level 5 armor workshop, where you can make Grunil pieces. The Grunil Helm is the best one to make. If there's too much competition on your server, you can switch to the gloves instead. You'll make a little bit less money, but the gloves are guaranteed to sell at max price. These are instant sell. The Helm, sometimes it's an instant sell, sometimes it's not. It just depends on your competition at that time. But like I said, if there's too many people crafting the Helm, just switch to the gloves and you'll make just about the same amount of money, only a little bit less. The reason why I don't have this going currently is because I ran out of black crystal. I've been relying on my worker to gather black crystal for me over at Abandoned Iron Mine, and I made the Helms too quickly and ran out, so I decided to close the shop down for a couple days while I give myself time to restock. But I'll be opening that up later tonight and getting my Grunil going again. So this node right here, Abandoned Iron Mine, is where you get the black crystal from. And then you can also mine black crystal from the black quartz nodes, or whatever they're called, around the Abandoned Iron Mine area. I haven't done it, I don't really know the route, but I watched another streamer, Zethian, do this, and he seemed to get a pretty good yield. So if you guys want to check him out, maybe ask him about that. If you can memorize the route and figure out where those nodes are, you can probably make quite a lot of money getting those black crystals, so you can constantly keep this armor workshop fed, because the profit for making Grunil is insane. It really might be the best workshop in the game overall. So yeah, like I said, Helms if you can. If not, make the gloves. The gloves are guaranteed to sell right away for max price. Also worth looking at is the level 3 armor workshop, where you can make steel Taratus. These aren't quite as good as the Grunil. You need the mud crystal to make these, which you can find at Southern Cianaga. So over here, south of Heidel, east of Glish, this iron node right here, Southern Cianaga, this will get you mud crystal. And you can use those to craft steel Taratus armor. Steel Taratus is going to vary quite a bit from server to server, so I don't have numbers for that one, but it is worth looking at if you want to make some more armor, and if you have a level 3 armor workshop somewhere that you can get for cheap, then you can take a look at steel Taratus as well. But regardless of what you do, definitely try to get a Grunil workshop going as soon as you have some black crystal to work with. Alright, and then finally, I mentioned earlier the Wagon Workshop. This one, again, the profit is going to vary quite a lot based on the server, based on the market. The interesting thing about the Merchant Wagon is that you can have more than one person working on it at a time. So right now, I've got something like 9 or 10 different goblins working on parts of this, and as a result, I can make these pretty quickly. When you get to the point where you have a bunch of artisan goblins working on these wagons, you can make them incredibly fast. I don't know how well the market will keep up with someone who's making a merchant wagon like, you know, every 40 minutes or whatever the maximum speed is with a bunch of goblins. But I can say that even when the prices on these go down, they're still incredibly good profit. Right now they're selling for 1.9 million on my server, which is insane. I've never seen them go that high. I normally sell these for 1.1 and they're still really good profit. When I sell these for 1.1, 1.2, I make about 4 million silver a day. So now that they're selling for 1.9, I don't even know how much I'm making, but it's probably pretty unreal. The demand for the merchant wagons is based on people essentially auto-pathing their horses overnight. So this is always going to be needed. It's possible that the reason the price is going up right now is because the new T6s and T7s just came out with a recent patch. And, you know, people are speculating that we might get T8s with Valencia. So people are probably preparing for that by doing a lot more horse leveling. And the merchant wagon is the best way to level multiple horses at once. You can hitch 4 horses to this thing, and it's a little bit faster than the noble wagon, not to mention cheaper. So usually when someone sets up an auto loop overnight, they use the merchant wagon to do so. So the interesting thing about the merchant wagon, I have, you know, of course, the energy efficiency up there. That's based on processing all these things yourself. You don't necessarily need to do that. You could buy the acacia plywood and the brass ingots straight, already processed off the auction house, and probably still make pretty good money off this. Obviously not as much if you processed it yourself, but definitely take a look at the prices of acacia and brass already processed on your server, and you might be able to save yourself some time, churn these out, and still make a really good profit from it. So really, really interesting workshop, Wagon Workshop. Definitely take a look at that. The one in Altanova, as far as I know, is the only spot where you can make merchant wagons. So over in Calpheon, there's a different type of wagon at the level 2 Wagon Workshop. Right now, this spot right here is the only spot in the game where you can make those merchant wagons. So absolutely, you should take advantage of this. There's one more workshop that I want to talk about, which is the level 3 tool workshop. I have mine set up over in Heidel. These are all over the place, so it doesn't really matter too much which one you pick. The items that I craft here are the shining steel tools. Now, I don't make these to sell on the marketplace like with the other workshops that we've seen in the video. The reason why I make these is to try to get the lucky versions. With an artisan human, I get a lucky version of these tools about 1 out of 10 times, so there is quite a sunk cost. I feel like it's worth it because the lucky tools will give you a bonus drop rate on the new hard and sharp crystal shards. We haven't proven it 100%, but based on my experience and the other gatherers that I've talked to that do a lot of this stuff, it does seem like the lucky tools help quite a bit. So I feel like it's very worth making shining steel tools and throwing away the cheap ones and keeping the lucky ones. You can sell the non-lucky ones to recuperate some of your cost. It's up to you if you feel like that's worth your marketplace spots. Sometimes I will if the price on these is good, but you know, when the price on a fluid collector drops down to 20k like it does sometimes, it's just not even worth selling at that point. But yeah, I put a lot of effort into making these and getting the lucky versions. Those sharp and hard crystal shards are going to be necessary to upgrade your gear beyond plus 15 once the Valencia updates come, which should be very soon. And the price on those shards is only going to go up. So I think lucky tools are very, very valuable. I would buy them directly from the market if I could, but they're always sold out. So I have to rely on this workshop and make them myself. If you want to use the tool workshop just to make money directly off the markets, then take a look at the various fishing rods. They all cost roughly the same amount of material, just different types of material. So take a look at your market and see which one tends to sell the best on your server, and you might be able to make some money here. Unfortunately, on my server, the fishing rods have never really been great. When you consider that these take 5 pure crystals, I compare them to things like, making offhands or making Yurias, and it just hasn't really seemed like it was worth it. But I have heard people in my channel talk about selling these for 800k. If you can sell these rods for 800k, then it's definitely worth it. You should look into doing that for sure. On my server, they never go that high, so I skip out on these, but I do like the tool workshop just for the shining steel tools. You can also make regular steel tools and get lucky versions of these if you don't want to spend quite as many materials, or if you don't have skilled heating yet for the pure crystals. You can still make these and get the lucky versions. They won't have as much durability as the shining steel versions, but they are much cheaper to make. So that's an alternative that you can look at as well if you don't want to go all out on the shining steel tools trying to get lucky ones. That pretty much sums up the entire empire. As you guys saw, nothing too painful here. You can get started on a lot of these even as a newer player. You could get your costume mill, your wagon workshop, and your armor workshop going just by buying lodging and having your workers help you out with the materials. So if you guys have any questions about this, as always, feel free to leave a comment or come stop by the Twitch channel. And I hope to see you guys again soon. Thank you so much for watching.